Hey, what's up? This your boy Big Man. You already know what it is, man. So let's get right to it. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Casanova 2 times. Now, Casanova 2 times got indicted with 18 other gang members for a racketeering charge that's being tried in New York City. Now, he's alleged to be a part of a gang called the Gorilla Stone Nation. Now, according to court documents, there's several subsets of the Gorilla Stone Nation Bloods gang, right? One of those being in Florida, where one of the alleged leaders of that gang was with Casanova at a famous nightclub called KOD, where a shooting took place and 2 rival gang members were shot and airlifted out of the facility. You know what I mean? Now, upon finding this out, it was said that the shooter went to his cell phone to immediately brag to other people that he was cool with in his gang and let it be known that he was the one responsible for the shooting. Well, this would come back to haunt him today because it looks like that same person has pled guilty in the case and was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Federal prison, that is, man. So this might give us an idea of the kind of time Casanova 2 times is looking at. Now, before we get to the specifics and break down all the details of this case, do me a favor. Make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and make sure you share this with your folks, and let's get it. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about this guy by the name of Jarrett Crisler, aka Jayecee. Now, Jayecee is being tried in the same RICO indictment in New York City as Casanova 2 times. Now, recently, he went before the judge and entered a guilty plea on 2 counts. Now, those 2 counts are including weapons, so he's looking at a lot of time. So when it came back that he's going to be facing about 17 years in federal custody, he probably wasn't surprised, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't happy. Now, when you consider this guy is supposed to be a leader in Florida, and you also consider that they have put Casanova pretty much at the top of this whole indictment, and he just got 17 years, this other guy, what kind of time is Casanova 2 times looking at, man? I'm talking about we might not see Casanova 2 times for a very, very long time if this goes the wrong way. Now, I'm not saying he's guilty, but this doesn't look good. Now, let's go into the case file and actually read a document from the sentencing that was submitted by the U.S. State's attorney to the judge in this case. Now, it says this in the beginning. It says, "Dear Judge Harlequin, the government respectfully submits this letter in advance of the sentencing of defendant Jarrett Crisler, Jr." Now, that's the guy also known as Jayecee. "Scheduled for September 30th, 2022. As described below, the defendant was a member of the violent gang called the Untouchable Gorilla Stone Nation, Gorilla Stone in quotes, that terrorized local communities and demonstrated a complete disregard for human life." Now, they're saying that he was a member of this gang, but later on you're going to hear that they consider him a leader and how it's broken down in the structure. Now, the document from the U.S. State's attorney goes on to say this. It says, "The defendant was a leader of a Gorilla Stone cave in Florida, and he engaged in serious acts of violence. On October 24th, 2020, the defendant fired shots outside of a crowded club, shooting 2 people who had to be helicoptered to a local hospital to treat their life-threatening injury." Now, in case you guys haven't put 2 and 2 together, that's the shooting that took place at King of Diamonds nightclub in Miami. Now, this is when Casanova was actually in town, and allegedly they ran into some Crip gang members, and they were throwing up a gang sign when they were huddled up in one section of the club, and one of the other gang members saw Casanova throwing up that sign, went up to Casanova allegedly and told him wrong sign and attempted to grab Casanova's hand. And it said that Casanova swerved the guy and replied by telling him, "Hey, you trying to die tonight?" And in retaliation, Jaycee Crisler shot the 2 rival gang members, and that's what's listed in the indictment. So let's continue with this, man. Now, it goes on to say the defendant showed no remorse for his shooting, instead bragging that he was, in quotes, a good aim. And "I ain't miss a shot, greatest shot in the world," laughing out loud. Now, if you guys have been following this case, those are the text messages that were included in the indictment, and they were taken from his phone. They were actually taking a lot of things from his phone, you'll see here in a second. Now, it goes on to say, and when he learned that the victim survived, he laughed about going back to the club to finish the job. Now, those text messages came back to haunt him in this indictment when the RICO case came down, right? Because they were able to lump that shooting in with the whole entire the RICO indictment involving Casanova and the guys in New York. And they said that he was one of the leaders and responsible for one of the caves. I guess since the name is Gorilla Stone Nation, they actually have caves as opposed to sets or whatever, and they have a leader of each cave. And he was said to be a leader and obviously one of the shooters, and the shooter that was in question the day that Casanova was there. So that actually puts Casanova there at the incident based on what it says here by the U.S. State's attorney, right? Now, that information wasn't the only information that they found in his phone, which is bad for the rest of the people on this indictment, because under further review of his phone and going through his text messages and pictures, they found a plethora of stuff that they could use to charge him. So he copped out to these charges right here, or pled to these 2 charges, because he thought that was his best bet, it seems like, working with his attorney. Now, it goes on to say this. It says, the defendant was also a critical source of firearms to the Gorilla Stone leaders in New York. On multiple occasions, the defendant traveled from Florida to New York to sell dozens of extremely dangerous firearms, including assault rifle style weapons and guns with silencers, to his fellow gang members, fully intending to help arm members of his violent gang so that they could be prepared to engage in potentially deadly shooting. So what the document is saying in this letter from the U.S. State's attorney is that they're accusing him of being the weapons dealer or the weapons trafficker for the entire gang, because he made several trips from Florida to New York to supply them with weapons, allegedly. At least that's what he pled guilty to. So they went on to say what they suggested he be sentenced, and according to the sentencing guidelines, and what's wild is this dude didn't have any prior arrest or anything like that. So they said according to the sentencing guidelines, they wanted him to do 207 to 228 months in jail. Now, federal jail. So he'll be doing like 90% of that time or something of that nature, right? Now, the judge came down with a decision yesterday and finally signed off on his sentencing, and it went like this. He pled guilty to counts 21 and counts 22 in the RICO indictment. Now, on count 21, that was the use of a firearm in the furtherance of attempted murder and assault with a dangerous weapon. Now, that is for the King of Diamonds shooting in Miami, where Casanova was reportedly there, right? Now, the second count, count 22, is firearms trafficking conspiracy. Now, this was the breakdown in the sentencing. So he ended up getting 147 months on count 21 and 60 months on count 22. And it ended up being something like 207 months on counts 21 and counts 22 combined. So once you break that down, it's like 17.25 years in jail. So it's looking like 7 years, 3 months in jail he'll be doing, man. Now, I don't know what he could do to lessen that time, but man, the guy, according to this indictment, is 27 years old. So, man, he won't be getting out of jail until he's in his 40s, his mid-40s, if he has to do all of that time. But this is wild, man. But with this coming down, what do y'all think this means for Casanova? Now, this guy is the alleged shooter in this situation, but they placed him as a leader of one of the caves for the Gorilla Stone Nation gang, and they're placing Casanova at the top, only below like 2 other people, I believe, in the indictment. Now, with that, do me a favor. Make sure you share this video. Make sure you like. Make sure you hit that notification bell so that way you get a notification every time I drop this hot content, and we out of here. And oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe either, y'all. Peace.